All right, so I let my phone charge and I did a little, what I do? A little, practice my dissertation that I know I will do here in this very same exact spot in this conference room. But yes, I'm at the big conference room. Oh my gosh. And I was practicing my dissertation of how racism affects birth outcomes in black women. It increases or is a contributor on the rise of black maternal health and neonatal health in this country. But man, this is so cool. This is so cool. Oh my gosh. My shirt just, Lord. Okay. This is so cool. If I could just be here and like to just wander and roam, it's so free. I can't explain it. I haven't had this feeling in so long. And just because I'm a Johns Hopkins, does not mean my life is perfect, because I had a whole meltdown 2 days ago. How my life is just, not my life's terrible, but I was going through it, honey. Oh, this is so cool. Oh, yes. I was looking at this one. I'm like, I need to find this conference room. Shoot, I'm about to go to the hospital. Hopefully I could just go in there and see. It's so cool. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, look at this painting. The Genetic Journey Following Society. Yeah, so cool. Okay, let me go. This is a whole nother conference room. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I should take a picture. I ain't gonna do that. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, the mic is on. I wish I had something to hold this with, so I could record myself. Today, I will defend my thesis on how racism affects childhood and birth outcomes in women of color. Racism is not, you can't see it, it's not a tangible item for you to hold, but you can feel it. And when you experience racism, you feel it, you know what it feels like, you can empathize with it. But when you don't, that's when that acknowledgement that racism exists, that's where the problem lies. And especially if you're not black and woman, and if you have not experienced racism, that problem is detrimental even more. Black women are dying. And I'm not talking about dying in quote unquote third world countries. Black women are dying in this country. women are dying unnecessarily in this country. A country that is supposed to be rich with resources and money and physicians and politicians and doctors and, the land of the free, home of the brave. Women are dying at astronomical rates unnecessarily. And it's not because of, their socioeconomic. It's not that they're not married. It's not that they are lazy. It's not that they're genetically predisposed to have these birth outcomes. But I would say all that racism does affect all of these things. And in my philosophy, as you can see, defending my thesis, taking things and addressing things at the root of the problem will ultimately solve the problem. And in my thesis, racism is what we have to address in this country in order to reduce the number of Black women dying unnecessarily at a disgusting rate. Women should not die in general unnecessarily. It doesn't matter the race, creed, nationality. But when people are dying, Black women are dying because their needs are not being heard or valued or met, that's the problem I have. Because childbirth can be, women can die in childbirth for, things that are not in their control. The narrative, but I would say start with this. Serena Williams and Janet Jackson are the two Black women that I know and seen where their socioeconomic status, their marital status, class, nationality, the proximity of healthcare was not a factor in them losing their lives in childbirth. Serena Williams almost died in childbirth because her areas of concern, she was not being valued when she said she was in pain or that her body does not feel right because someone checked that. But if she was a white woman, her needs, her concerns about what was happening to her body would be met immediately, or at least at the earliest convenience of her healthcare providers. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from this notion in medicine where Black women does not feel pain, or Black people does not feel pain. But I'm focusing on Black women specifically. I know this notion started way before Dr. Sims, and of course it started or it continued after Dr. Sims. But I'm focusing on Dr. Sims because he is, unfortunately, for me, going into gynecology, he's the father of gynecology. So that's why I am including him into my thesis and bring him up now. Dr. Sims was a doctor who was tasked with sewing up and healing the fistulas in 3 enslaved Africans in the late 1800s. He was tasked by the enslaved, owners to fixing fistulas that occurred after childbirth. Fistulas are when there is a tear between the vaginal canal and the rectum or anal canal. So, that muscle, the perineal gland, the perineum is not intact. It's just one hole. And unfortunately, the necessity to fix these fistulas was not for the betterment of the women. It was because their owners wanted them to get fixed so that he can continuously rape them into, that's about it. They were still expected to work on the fields, do as much work as possible, still in pain, but because they did not satisfy someone who was taking their humanity away from them, that's when their needs, that's where the need of healing their fistulas started from, or stemmed from. So going back to Dr. Sims did not provide any pain management to these women while he was doing medical procedures on them, sewing them up, suturing them, using, I would say, unsterilized equipment and tools on them. All in the of one, they were enslaved Africans, so it was deemed that they were even human, but when you go further, it's that they did not feel pain, because how can you feel pain? Well, how can you work in the fields and not be in pain? Which is a really messed up psychological notion that even myself, I can't fathom. But we'll get to that later. But sorry, this is very hard. But Dr. Sims, one lady, I really forgot, I'm not really good with names, but you can look this up. So going with Dr. Sims and, Black women don't feel pain. On the other side of that, white women felt all the pain. So going back to, how childbirth, or how women were giving birth in this country, the first late 1800s, early 1900s, is that Black women would be getting little to none attention or pain management, and Black and white women would be given all of the medicine. Black women be in pain, white women would be doped up. They would not even remember them giving birth. They would be knocked out, which is still not okay, because birth should be safe and dignified, period. But that doesn't even start in with Dr. Sims. Even in current medical books today, there is literature stating that Black people do have a high threshold of pain. And this is being taught to our current nurses, physicians, CNAs, any healthcare provider. So how do we stop this? How do we address this? Well, one, the medical industry or field should just take accountability, or take I would say step 2 know that this is happening because racism is currently rampant in, the medical field to this day. Serena Williams' daughter is only, 5, 6 years old, tops. That's not that long ago. We're still living the remnants of COVID-19, so, yes. So, it's not that long ago. Still wear masks. So how do we stop this? Well, I would say it starts with how we teach doctors. It starts with how doctors today currently have to acknowledge their implicit bias and find a way to unlearn that. It starts with our lawmakers. It starts with our board members. It starts with hospital administration. It starts with everyone. Even starts with city zoning laws. It starts with everyone, I would say. Because I know, and I see a Black woman, die unnecessarily, it does break my heart. Because I know that if I was their doctor, that at least racism would not be a contributor of their birth outcomes, or my implicit bias would not be a contributor of their birth outcomes or negative birth outcomes. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It's definitely more. I just hit the surface, the sheer surface, the tip of the iceberg in this conversation. And I get more research and look more into this, I would definitely be able to defend my thesis a little bit more effectively. But because I'm doing this off the whim, you get what you got. I give you an anecdotal evidence instead of scientific. Because what's science about Black women dying unnecessarily? It's all human behavior. But so scientific about that. There's no genetic predisposition, especially when there's been studies where, sorry, I was going to end this, but things just popping up. Especially when there's studies that compared African American women and African Native women and African Native women living in America or on the continent of Africa have way better health outcomes and birth outcomes than women who are native born, raised in America. So that negates the theory of Black women are just genetically predisposed to negative birth outcomes. It's racism. That's it. How do we make the birth outcomes better? More Black women are going into healthcare, becoming OBGYNs. People are waking up, but it's more of the older generations that, make the big decisions. Those are the people that I myself want to address. The people who make the people who are authors of required medical textbooks. Yes, all right, now I'm finished with my practice. All right, in my discussion to myself.